we're going to delve into another topic in the digital realm that's trending and timely, artificial intelligence or AI. So the landscape we operate in as CDFIs is constantly evolving. Economic dynamics, technological advances, and societal shifts demand innovation and adaptation. Now more than ever, we face the imperative to leverage technology to fulfill our missions sustainably and effectively. And the maturation of AI technologies has unlocked new opportunities to do so. It feels like every day there's a new headline or a use case for how to use AI. Not gonna lie, we definitely use ChatGPT to generate ideas for the title of this webinar. But what exactly is AI and how and when should it be utilized? After all, for every new opportunity, new challenges and trade-offs emerge. And so I'm thrilled to welcome Sarah Hope Marshall, the founder and principal of Profound Hope Industries, and Amir Ali, the vice president of National Community Facilities Lending at LIF, to lead us in a discussion to answer these questions. They'll frame and define AI and then share opportunities and considerations in the context of CDFIs. So now I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Thanks, Sindhu. Next slide, please. So now we're going to take a big 180-degree turn and talk about contextualizing AI for the CDFI industry specifically. And then I'm going to hand it over to Amir to talk about some practical use cases for AI and how you can use it day to day in your work. But it's important to set the groundwork because thinking about the CDFI industry itself, the ultimate goal is really to advance economic resilience for people that need it. So advancing economic opportunity. And so we're going out a little bit bigger than AI specifically and talking about the impact of technology on the people that we're trying to serve, because that's an important consideration when we think about how to use some of these specific applications in our work. And the industry and movement really came from place-based community organizing. So groups of people with local connections working to make change in their communities. That face-to-face, place-based interaction plays a very big role in the work that all of you are doing day to day and what drives your work. And so I want to talk a little bit about a concept called reinforcing social networks. And that's really the concept that whatever we're seeing happen on the ground in terms of technology access, whether that be something as basic as broadband access, necessary for economic survival these days, all the way to the more advanced technologies and advanced use cases of AI, we're really talking about this concept that people are, as we know, equity, are dealing with the same types of situations and resources that they are in their places and in their locations. So it's important to consider the fact that technology can impact social capital. And social capital is defined as the resource, relationships, and networks of connected people. That has been demonstrated to have direct impacts on socioeconomic mobility. There's a point in time where really our goal is to help people build the social capital that they need to have the resources that they need. And technology can really do two things in this space. One, it has the potential to connect people very, very broadly. And we see this in some national organizing movements around important policy changes. It can connect people to interests outside of their immediate scope. Maybe somebody with a very specific interest or a very specific challenge, like a rare disease community, has the opportunity to use technology to connect to people that are not in their specific place. It can expand people's worlds and networks. But on the flip side of that, technology can also disconnect people locally. As I just mentioned, the CDFI industry, without having time to go into the actual history of how it came about, really came about because of face-to-face engagement that became a national movement. But now with the advent of technology and so many different opportunities to connect with people, both in person and digitally, it can be harder for those types of movements to sustain themselves locally. So to sustain themselves in the places that your organizations are working to change. So as we think about technology and use cases for technology, a really critical question to ask is, how can CDFI work also build the social capital? How can we make sure that people are being connected to other people in their places and having robust social interactions, which are shown to have resilience in terms of health outcomes, in terms of economic outcomes, in terms of all kinds of outcomes when people have these healthy relationships and aren't dealing with feeling disconnected, which can come when people are spending a lot of their primary time online and not face-to-face with people. Next slide. It's also important to consider technology's impact on community. And I mention this because technology is behind a lot of these changes that we've seen in neighborhoods and communities across the country. And while this might not be specific to AI, the relevance is the fact that technology is deployed in certain ways. So technology is developed and it has all kinds of possibilities and potentials, but we don't necessarily see the unintended consequences until decades or so down the road. There's a lot of conversation around how social media has created polarization and led to disinformation and challenges in just getting people to see common ground because of some political extremes in the country. And there are also technologies that are changing neighborhoods. And that's important to consider because a lot of the work that you do is in very specific places. And some of these things have more relevance in urban centers than in rural communities. But no matter which locale it is, these types of technologies will ultimately impact communities across the country because we're all connected in important ways, such as through food and agriculture and things like that. So technology has the potential to reduce social interaction and connection with people who are part of the community. And that's a concept called familiar strangers, where we know and recognize that people are a part of our specific community. I like to use the example, I have an aggressive Chihuahua and I walk it around my neighborhood. And so people in my community, I know they know me as the woman with the aggressive Chihuahua, and they might not know my name, but they know that I'm part of the community because they see me out, they see me in that community. So just to give a few specific examples, Amazon Prime as a tool may increase convenience, but it also decreases neighborly interaction, contact that we have with people in the community. Airbnbs in urban areas have been found to increase crime in communities due to increased transients in the neighborhoods and people coming into communities without established relationships. Vacant storefronts and shuttered churches and community centers need to be put to new uses. And then national short-term leasing models encourage travel between communities without maintaining that local connection that is long-lasting and deep and keeps people there long enough to make change. And all of this is made possible by technology. So as you do your work and think about using AI, don't forget to consider how the places you're working in have been and may be changed by technology as it's introduced on a broad scale, because that can inform how you do some of the things you do in terms of outreach. Next slide. And then next, I want to just take a few minutes to define artificial intelligence, because since ChatGPT came out, it was a while ago. It feels like not too long ago, but it was a little while ago now. It tends to be the dominant conversation, chatbots and all of those types of things. So there's really three categories of artificial intelligence, and those, depending on who you're talking to, may get narrower and narrower. But from a very high level, there's narrow AI, general AI, and then super AI, and they all have different functions. Artificial intelligence itself is a very general term that covers a lot of things, and I've listed them out on this slide. I'm not going to read through all of them just for the sake of time. And some of these on this list are subcategories of one or the other. But as practitioners and just as people who are civically engaged, artificial intelligence literacy is important and becoming more and more critical, because there are blanket broad generalizations being made about certain types of AI that might not actually be applicable to something that you're considering for your own organization. And then the more informed you are, you have the opportunity to raise important questions about ethics and disparities. And while these specific tech applications might not be within the scope of your day-to-day, just having a clear understanding of how artificial intelligence is developed and what different applications mean will help inform your work and make sure that you are staying up to speed and on top of where the trends in the industry are going. Next slide. And then within that, there's really two types of AI that we most commonly talk about. So predictive AI analyzes data to make predictions or classifications about future events. And we often think about this in terms of automated decision-making around lending and tools that make the underwriting process easier. I know there have been important conversations in the industry about thinking about algorithmic bias and that type of thing. And then generative AI is the other type of AI that is really the hot topic right now. And that is around using it to create new content, text, images, videos. ChatGPT fits into that category. And that may require some thinking and conversation about how your organization is helping to upskill the people that you're serving, because that is one that has changed the landscape very quickly in terms of time and efficiency and cognitive knowledge and the value of cognitive skill. Next slide. And so before I hand it over to Amir to talk about some specific use cases, I want to leave you with some principles for adopting artificial intelligence. And as we think about this, CDFIs really have an opportunity to be leaders in this space and should be leaders in this space. It's not irrelevant to your work. You use it day to day in the things that you're doing. But as you think about it, first of all, use the technologies that you implement to make sure that you're spending more time leveraging your face-to-face interactions. So using it as a support rather than replacing interactions just because it may be a faster process. Use it to spend more time on things like technical assistance or just having conversations and building relationships within the community. And as I said earlier, making sure that you're facilitating opportunities for the people that you're serving to make connections within their community as well. The second principle would be developing internal policies to guide and evaluate tech and fintech decisions. Because technology is happening so quickly, there's constantly changes. And as I said at the very beginning, biases and unintended consequences can really be uncovered later and with time. And so putting some policies in place around vendor decision-making and partnership and making sure that you have those guidelines and parameters set before the opportunity to partner with somebody or receive funding from somebody comes to place. You already know what your framework is as an organization. And then third, consider how artificial intelligence and technology more broadly might be impacting your target market, as well as they might be facing barriers in how they're accessing technology within their own communities, within their own digital literacy skill sets, and then, of course, in accessing your own services. And then make digital equity a lens in your product, technical assistance development, and service delivery models. And here, it's important to just remember, digital equity is a really big conversation right now. There's been a lot of funding coming out for broadband infrastructure lately. And I know there are some CDFIs that are leading the way in that. But it's important to remember that broadband is a necessity for people to be successful, but it's not sufficient for economic mobility. It's just the entryway, the gateway. If you don't have broadband, you're very challenged in a lot of ways in terms of participating in the economy. But having broadband doesn't automatically make you successful, and some people are just getting access to broadband now. Next, ask deeper questions about how tech is impacting the location you're serving or revitalizing. And then finally, as I said before, be leaders in ways in using tech for good, being informed about technology, advocate for ethical policy, and leveraging tools in a responsible way. It can really be a model for many industries in terms of positive impacts of technology, because it's not going anywhere and you are going to need to continue to use it and adopt AI in your day-to-day. And with that, I'll hand it over to Amir.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. My name is Amir Ali with Low Income Investment Fund. It's a pleasure to be here and speaking with you today. As a lender and a technology enthusiast, I've been in a unique position to explore the use of AI in CDFIs, and this applies to both large and small CDFIs. Some of the largest companies in the world, including Google, Microsoft, are rapidly investing in ways to bring more and more AI features to all of the most popular apps, including ChatGPT, Google Docs, Excel, Outlook, and Gmail. Now, as a CDFI professional, whether you're a lender, whether you're in operations or in HR, you likely have seen some of these platforms. And soon, all of these programs will have features allowing users to input prompts or instructions in text, and the software will be able to automatically create more and more sophisticated outputs. Now, many CDFI professionals have already found ways to use a combination of word processors and ChatGPT to accelerate their underwriting work, HR templates, grant-seeking work at almost no additional cost. So I think this is even people just beginning to work in the CDFI space, this is a great way to start and learn, not only about AI, but also about best practices within your respective fields within a CDFI. Now, as Joe mentioned, AI is being used for a lot of crime and fraud. So it's really important to have broad awareness to protect yourself from those bad actors. But also, as you use AI in your day-to-day work, it's important to exercise critical thinking, verify information from reliable sources, and ensure quality and accuracy of the final work product. In addition, and something Sarah touched on is transparency, fairness and bias, and data privacy. They are significant considerations that we'll talk more about in the coming slides. Let's jump into opportunities, starting with lending. Now, as lenders, AI can help us streamline loan underwriting process, making it faster and more efficient. An example is credit scoring models, something I've read about recently and seen it being used actually in a CDFI. Credit scoring models often exclude individuals with thin credit files or non-traditional behaviors or jobs. And CDFIs can use AI to develop more inclusive credit scoring models that incorporate alternative data sources, such as rent payment, utility bills, and even social media profiles to assess an applicant's creditworthiness. This approach can really remove some of the barriers and expand access to credit for people who would have otherwise been declined of the credit. Another opportunity within lending we've seen that people have explored is within portfolio management and risk assessment. CDFIs can use AI to predict future performance of loans. And most of us, a lot of us are lenders and provide loans to various types of borrowers, and predicting loan performance is a critical part of our jobs that we need to identify reserves, and those reserves impact our financial statements. AI has been seen to help identify defaults before they happen through various data inputs, and the accuracy of AI is really dependent on those inputs, which we'll again talk more about. An example is an AI can analyze historical data and identify patterns that forecast future credit performance. And these models can use a range of inputs, including loan characteristics, macroeconomic indicators, to estimate losses more accurately and also allow for earlier intervention and support to those borrowers that might need it. Going down to considerations, we talked about bias and fairness a little bit. This is extremely important and something that all lenders, financial institutions have to grapple with. And we, as CDFIs, we must ensure that AI models are free from biases that could lead to unfair lending practices. There are some ways to do that. One is regular audits and updates to the AI models that can help maintain fairness. Connected to bias and fairness is the lack of transparency and explainability. Now, AI decisions in lending must be transparent and explainable to both staff and borrowers, so that it can build trust and comply with regulatory requirements. This is critical, and my personal experience is that we are not there yet. We are not there in being able to explain how things are being calculated, and that's really important. And last but not the least, the community, incorporating community input, bringing them along in the journey, whether it's on the policy level or at the neighborhood level, explaining to them what is being used, how is AI being used in your organizations, getting input from them and really bringing them along is critical consideration. Next slide talks about customer experiences. Now, many of us are organizations that are outwardly facing. We deal with borrowers, we deal with other clients, we deal internally with our employees who are our customers as well. And AI is being used by a lot of organizations to improve customer service, from chatbots to virtual assistants. These tools provide instant customer support. They can answer FAQs and guide users through their products and services, and hopefully enhancing the customer experience. They can support launch of new products, go deeper into training. They can also support your organization's CDFIs cater to groups that speak a different language, for example, or dealing with a complex product, like new market tax credits, for example. Personalized financial advice is the second opportunity in customer service. Financial advice is typically thought of as a customized support for clients, where the financial advisor has to consider their individual situation. That's sort of the traditional financial advice model. There are several people who don't have those specific situations, and for them, potentially AI could be used to deliver financial advice on their portfolios and so on. So that's something we've seen happen already with several AI-driven financial advisors, or robo-advisors that they're called, I think. And I think that takes me into human and AI collaboration as a consideration or a potential pitfall. Many times there is collaboration between AI and human, and we must ensure that there is a thoughtful and a seamless handoff between the AI system, which has its limits. The limits are to what extent is the issue standard? Once it becomes non-standard, it has to go to a human agent. And I know we've all been on call screaming agent so that the voice AI can understand what we're saying and get us to an agent, and that's still very frustrating. But hopefully in the future, AI will help better voice recognition and improve that experience. The other consideration is privacy and security within customer service for CDFIs. Implementing robust data protection measures to safeguard customer information used by AI systems can help maintain trust and compliance with privacy laws. And as all of us are in financial services, we understand the importance of privacy and security. It is paramount, and until some of these threshold issues are addressed, AI cannot be used in this way at CDFIs. The next slide will talk about something that's very near and dear to all CDFIs, which is grant writing. We rely on grants. It's a fundamental part of our existence, and we must continuously demonstrate to the grantors and funders that we have a compelling platform to support low-income communities. And the way we communicate these ideas to our funders by providing examples backed by our thesis and data, and by demonstrating we have experienced leadership, all of those things will determine if we win a grant or not. And there's limited time and more grants to write. That's where one of the use cases potentially could be using AI. As an example, you're working on a grant application and you come across a question that you've answered before in a previous proposal, but you can't recall which grant proposal in your database contains that previous answer, or just gist of that answer that you can use for this application. You proceed to check file after file, searching through shared drives, inboxes, looking for keywords, clues to help you locate that section. And finally, after a few minutes, or in worst cases, after several hours, you locate the passage, which then you copy and paste in your new draft. That's the current scenario. The AI scenario is you're working on a grant application, you need to find a previously answered question, and you use an app, AI app. One example is an app called Grantable. Not affiliated with that app, just an example that popped up in my searches. It's a generative AI grant writing software that can instantly search through all the content in your library and retrieve that meaningful excerpts that you could reuse. And this saves you from having to go through each document and folder individually. You can search your entire library at once and either select excerpts yourself or allow the AI to recommend resources. And this entire process could take, less than a minute or a little bit more. So grant writing can be enhanced by using AI, grant proposals, language enhancement, and all of that is being done and continues to improve as we go along. The consideration in grant writing is something really important, and that's personalization. Now, if all of us start using AI in our grants, every grant will look the same. And I think there's this element of how does your grant proposal stand out? And that's one of the pitfalls of these softwares or apps is they are not able to stand out on their own. You need a human to really bring that authentic argument, that story, that narrative. And our audiences are humans. And I think that's sort of where this is so important, and not to diminish the use of AI. AI can still help save time, and humans can spend more time in leveling up that proposal and spending time on really ensuring that it is differentiated from others. The last consideration here in grant writing, and honestly in other areas of AI, is dependency on existing data. And recently I was listening to a podcast that talked about how AI models are now being trained by other AI models. And that just creates a loop where you go down the path of lower and lower creativity, lower and lower human written data. And that's a pitfall. That's something we'll have to collectively figure out. And as CDFIs, it's something to be aware of, that AI is only as good as the data that it is used, and it needs to be continuously updated. The last slide will talk about HR. And human resources is near and dear to everyone. It's one of the critical components of the CDFI's work. Hiring, retaining, training staff really is one of the most important things we do, other than serving our customers and borrowers. AI could be used for talent acquisition and screening. CDFIs could potentially leverage AI to streamline the recruitment process, from identifying potential candidates to screening applications based on predetermined or predefined criteria. It can help with employee engagement and retention. Can use AI to analyze employee feedback and performance data to identify trends and develop strategies for improving engagement and retention. I think we all understand the cost it has on a CDFI when someone leaves with that institutional knowledge. We're small teams, we each do a lot at CDFIs. And when one person leaves, it is a significant cost to hire a replacement, train the replacement. It could take months or years to really get that person up to the previous level. And this is where AI could potentially be used to create onboarding materials. It could be used to really provide that additional support and training to the new employee. Two considerations here in human resources that are important to talk about. One is bias in recruitment. We need to monitor AI tools for biases to ensure the recruitment process maintains diversity and fairness in hiring practices. And this is something CDFIs understand, diversity and fairness. And as we discussed in the past, this has continued to come up within AI as a pitfall. It lacks explainability. And that explainability is important to know whether the process is fair. And second thing I'll talk about in human resources is data privacy, ensuring employee data that is used by AI for performance analysis or engagement initiatives is handled with strict confidentiality and in compliance with employment laws. There's a theme across all the things we talked about, and data privacy and bias are consistent themes. And as you see, those are some of the big pitfalls or unknowns at this point that are improving more and more, but continue to be a big concern for, frankly, many CDFIs, including Lyft. So with that, I will conclude and we'll move into Q&A.
Great, thanks, Amir. And thank you to you and Sarah and Joseph for this great presentation that you've given us so far.